you're 100 grand in debt. Fast forward to today, things have changed. What was the bullet point list of like the things that you cut?
I was like, our life is going to be so different and we're going to become financially free. And then January of 2018, I actually got fired and crashed my car in the same week. We pushed forward with our goals. We basically said, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to buy our first rental before the end of the year.
Now we're at 14 apartments or units. We are not smarter than you. We don't have these magic like skills. We just learned, we figured it out, we made mistakes. And a lot of this stuff, if you're doing your due diligence and you're doing your research, it can be very accessible and the everyday person can figure it out with the right planning.
How do you ask for seller financing? How do you find a seller finance deal?
I have an idea. Would you be down for like a quick like seller finance role play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, is this Brady?
Welcome to Journey of a Smart Landlord by RentRedi, the show that helps you grow your portfolio with confidence so you can build a life you love. Today, I'm sitting down with Josh and Ali, who went from over $100,000 in student loan debt to now being debt-free and owning 12 rental units. We unpack their really inspiring, really relatable story of the sacrifices that made this possible. We talk about how they find deals before they ever hit the MLS. And we talk about how to approach those sellers, which, by the way, one of the reasons this podcast is so long is we did a live role play of how to pitch seller financing to a landlord step by step. All that and more coming up next. Welcome, friends. My name is Brady. This is my co-host, Ebony. Ebony, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks, Ebony. I am joined by our guests today, my new friends, Josh and Ali from New York, better known as the Phi couple on Instagram. Josh and Ali, welcome.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here and talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good conversation. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys have been using RentRedi almost since the inception of the company. You've been around for a minute. You're local to New York. You've been buying real estate for about 10 years now. I am really excited today to dive into your acquisition story, your systems you guys have for managing rentals, but obviously your story too, because you guys have an awesome story. So I would love if you could just share with us like what life looked like before real estate investing, kind of how you took that leap of faith, what kind of sacrifices you guys made as a couple, like spill it all. What's going on?
Yeah, no, it's been quite the journey. So Ali and I actually got married in 2018. But a year prior to that, so in 2017, she graduated with her master's in social work. And that was the first time we were both ever working full time. And the act of planning for a wedding was actually the first time in our relationship we'd ever really started talking about like finances and budgeting and how much we were saving or not saving. And it was through those conversations that it became evident that one, we were broke, like more than broke because we were using credit cards to also pay our bills. We had accumulated over $100,000 of student loans. We had really no plan in place for paying for a wedding that was a year away. And we were both working probably 50 plus hours a week and completely burnt out. And so that's where our journey kind of really began.
Yeah, that's a lot of student loan debt. I can't relate. I didn't go to college, but like, what's that like going into college? Like, hey, we'll figure this out later.
It's actually pretty insane because we met at state school. So we both went to state school. So that's 2 bachelor's degrees. I got a master's at state school. This is like, we both had part-time jobs our entire time at college. We both got scholarships. We felt like we were doing everything right and the thing that you're quote unquote supposed to do, right? And then we graduated with human services degrees. I think both making maybe $12 an hour in really tough and high burnout fields. I was working at a domestic violence shelter. Josh was working with
Adults with disabilities.
And they were intense jobs. We weren't making a lot and we were strapped with this insane student debt. And at the time, honestly, the number wasn't even that jarring to me because I was just like, this is just what you do. Like, this is what people do. Like, people go to college and they have debt and they figure it out. But I feel like neither of us really had a grounded perspective. And how could you at 22 of the real life implications of carrying that level of debt with the incomes we had?
So I guess, how'd you go from, hey, this is always going to be with us to what if we could actually get rid of this? Because that's hard to fathom.
Yeah. So then it became a matter of, okay, well, we don't have any money. We actually have we have a negative net worth.
Yeah.
How does one not have the situation that we're in. So like as simple as it is, like I went to Google and I was like how do you pay off debt? Like what do you do? And so naturally, the internet gods came forth with Dave Ramsey. And I'd never heard of Dave Ramsey or anything like that. And I was like, okay, what's this? And so I went on YouTube and I started watching and I started hearing all these incredible stories. And I was like, well, there you go, Al, look at that. That's how you pay off debt. And so for probably like 2 or 3 months, Allie and I were really like gung ho on the 7 baby steps, and we cut out the coffees, we cut out date nights, and we were, doing the thing. And very quickly, it was kind of like, if we keep doing this, we probably aren't going to make it to the altar in 2018.
It was tough. I think that there's so much success with that model for people, but I think what was hard for us was that it took away a lot of like the simple pleasures in our life that like made things enjoyable, like the date night, like going on a coffee date, or getting a little thing or whatever. So it felt like we were eliminating a lot of the joy that we had. And yes, there was a bigger picture, but our debt was so large. It was like, gosh, this is going to go on forever, and we're cutting out like not really meaningful expenses, smaller expenses that do add up. But
so then I kind of was like, okay, well, it's like proof of concept. This is now I'm kind of interested in personal finance. Like, is there another way? It went back
can we
to
do it faster?
Yeah, it went back to the Google machine, if you will. And then I found like Grant Cardone and some other big names in real estate. I was like, oh, Al, like real estate's going to be the way because of, cash flow and stuff. But then I started, reading a lot of his stuff, and he's like, yeah, you got to just go skip the small stuff, go straight to like 100-unit apartment buildings. And I'm like, I have no money. Like, I don't know in what world like that makes sense. And 10X to go home. I was like, okay. So I was like, what's our happy medium? And wouldn't you know it, Scott Trench at that time in 2017 had released the book Set for Life. And I remember reading the book and listening to it, and I was like, here's our happy medium, right? It wasn't like all or nothing thinking, and it wasn't go big or go home. And I remember in the book, Scott broke down the average household. I think back then, it's probably not so different now, but the average household spent 70% of their household income on housing, food, and transportation. And he was like, if you can figure out how to eliminate or radically reduce those 3 levers and, earn more, invest consistently, it can absolutely change your life. And then we discovered house hacking, and
the rest is history.
Yeah.
I love that so much, especially for me, someone who is $68,000 in student loan debt with an associate's degree. Yeah. So one that I'm not even using for that matter. But I love that because I've been there, and it's like I house hacked. So I did the same exact thing. But I didn't go through that whole loop that you guys did. And it's like you find all these systems and you try to figure them out, and then you realize that system might not be the one for me. And I love the fact that you guys kept going until you found one that does fit. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was so you guys, obviously you made some sacrifices. You were 100 grand in debt. Fast forward to today, things have changed. What was the bullet point list of like the things that you cut while obviously still staying married?
Yeah. So that was 2017. And I was like, our life is going to be so different, and we're going to become financially free. And then January of 2018, I actually got fired and crashed my car in the same week. And so that kind of sent us on a whole tailspin, but we still committed, to goals that we had. In terms of the biggest things, right? So we pushed forward with our goals. I studied real estate and personal finance 10 hours a day while driving Uber for podcasts, while Ali was working as a school social worker. Our wedding was August of 2018, and we basically said, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to buy our first rental before the end of the year.
So we ended up actually skipping our honeymoon and instead like scraping every dollar we had to buy a first house hack, which was a 100-plus-year-old duplex. And I could say like we were super aligned and really excited about this, but I think I went into the whole thing a little kicking and screaming. I had more imagined like my beautiful dream home and my 2.2 children, and like that's the life in the conveyor belt that everyone does, and I want to do this thing that I pictured. And what do you mean I'm going to be someone's landlord? Like I don't want to do that. But I think that a big conversation was always like, you want these things, but you can't afford them. And I'm not holding you back, meaning Josh, our situation is holding us back and we need to improve our situation if we're going to go forward. And a lot of conversations about like quality of life. What do we want our future to be? When you have a kid, do you want to take an extended maternity leave? Like all of these things, I eventually begrudgingly agreed. And we found a duplex. And truth be told, it was nicer than the apartment that we were paying $1,400 a month for. And right away, someone was subsidizing our housing and we had an amazing tenant. So the big things we caught immediately, housing, it got slashed in half overnight with that duplex. And I don't mean to say it flippantly. We did our due diligence. We made 1 million offers and always got outbid, but we finally found one off market. The other thing that we cut was transportation. I had a gorgeous, beautiful car with heated leather seats and I loved it. But again, we couldn't afford it. Yeah. Josh crashed it. And I thought, okay, we're going to go back and get, yeah, he did that on purpose. No, I'm just kidding. For insurance purposes, I'm kidding.
Crash hack.
Yeah, let's not publicize that. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go back and get the gorgeous car. No. Josh saw that millionaires drive Toyota Corollas and we need to drive a Toyota Corolla. So what do we buy? The nastiest, like cigarette burn, bump in the fender, Toyota Corolla. But you know what? We paid cash for it. And I remember literally, this is dramatic now, like this is so dramatic, but like I remember crying on the way home and being like, I can't believe this is our car. But that car ended up being the biggest blessing because it took away a $300 per month payment and it helped us pay our debt off. Like that's a fun memory now. And then lastly, food, right? We just ate at home. We lowered that expense as much as we could and we reserved date nights more sparingly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like how you still kept date nights in though, because I feel like that's critical. Like you can't just toss everything. It can't be extreme. You gotta have a balance.
Nope.
I think the reason why we were able to keep those little tiny things like the date night, the coffee, when you slash your housing and your car and your food, you can still sprinkle in those little things that improve your quality of life and bring you joy because you're so greatly reducing those biggest levers of your budget.
Exactly. So the only missing piece for me before we move on is funding that first one. So you guys did Dave Ramsey, which my wife and I went through Dave Ramsey as well. Super familiar. I love it. It's not for everybody, but it's a fantastic foundation. You eliminated the expenses. So did you, instead of doing the debt snowball, instead of, paying down student loans, just take the cash from the expenses you were slashing and then push that towards the down payment? Is that what happened?
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds amazing. So, like I said, I got fired and I was making money from Uber. And so instead of doing anything overly wild, I just took my old 401k from the job. And originally I was like,
didn't have a lot in it.
I had $14,200. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go get another job and then I'll just roll the 401k over. And then I was like, but what if I don't? What if right now is an opportunity to like make a bet on us? And like worst case scenario, like this real estate thing is a scam. And yeah, guess what? I'll just go find another job. But moderately good outcome is this down payment buys us something that lowers our cost of living by like $10,000 to $15,000 per year, and changes our life forever. So I was like, that's the bet I'm willing to make. Ali was basically like, yeah, we're going to do that. But still, if it doesn't work out, you're going to get a job. And I was like, okay, I think it's going to work.
Well, you got a job regardless. But yeah, we scraped together some money from the 401k. We had some money in savings. We like really rallied and took all the money we had, bought this duplex. And because it widened the gap between our income and our expenses, then all that extra, that is when we were shoveling money into our student loan debt.
So we talk about operating in sprints. So we closed on the like the week of Christmas in 2018. And then we just like slept in it. No, we didn't have anything in there. We just slept there like the week of Christmas. And then I remember January 1st, the tenant upstairs came down with a check in his hand. It was for $750. And he gave it to me and he's like, hey, I guess you guys are the new landlord. Here's rent. It was the first time someone had just like given me a check for money. And I was like, okay. And our payment back then was like, I think $1,235. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so we owe like $500. a month or two prior to that, we were paying like $1,250 a month in rent. And I just remember holding that check, and then like I was like, this is real. This is incredible. And yeah, that was that.
Okay, so tell us. So you guys got the first house hack, right? Then how did you guys end up getting your next property, and how many do you have total?
Absolutely. I'll give like a high level overview. So we had that first house hack. After we lived there for 2 years, we actually bought a second house hack, which was another duplex. And we used an FHA loan to buy that. And then after doing 2 house hacks, we were like, do we want to keep moving, or do we want to figure out another way to scale our portfolio? So from there, we used hard money and a BRRRR, and we bought a triplex with that strategy. From there, we did seller financing, which was really cool. And we bought 4 units the following year with seller financing. And then most recently, we bought 5 units, a duplex and a triplex on the same lot. And that was also with seller financing. So at our peak, we had 16 apartments or units. But actually, we recently sold a duplex. So now we're at 14 apartments or units.
Y'all have blown my mind, because that's like every freaking strategy all wrapped in one package. So every time you guys go from one to the other, are you researching it, or are you just figuring this out as you go?
Oh gosh, no, yeah, no. So I'm like a voracious learner. So I'm always studying and I'm always learning. But we've also made some like amazing friends over the years too, who are also very skilled, and so they've been kind enough to help kind of guide and advise. And then some of it is you read the books and watch the podcast, but some of it, like you just can't really know until you're doing it. And then like the theory becomes like real. And sometimes the most learning is actually in the doing.
And I remember when we first started real estate investing, everything seemed so overwhelming. Like I remember we had a pinhole leak in our sink in our kitchen, and I was on the phone with my parents sobbing like, what are we gonna do? And now I have like a ceiling collapse, and I'm like, okay, we know the drill. So I think that it's like the more you get into it, like year one, Ali would see everything that I just said and be like, how did you do all those advanced maneuvers? But what you realize is people that are doing this stuff, like we are not smarter than you. To the listener, like we are not smarter than you. We don't have these magic like skills. Like we just learned, we figured it out, we made mistakes. And a lot of this stuff, if you're doing your due diligence and you're doing your research, it can be very accessible, and the everyday person can figure it out with the right planning.
And one thing I just want to spotlight is like while we were scaling our portfolio, like we still didn't have a lot of money. So because like I said, if you go back, like we closed on that first house hack the end of 2018. We still had $100,000 of debt when we woke up January of 2019.
And for most of our real estate journey, we're working our full-time social worker jobs and part-time jobs, because the full-time jobs didn't get us enough money to pay
Uber,
the bills.
Still hustling, right?
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden we had, $1,000, $2,000 a month of money that we were keeping that used to go out to the banks. Now it was in the bank of Ali and Josh.
Because our expenses were lower.
And so that became our debt snowball, Brady, to go back to the Dave Ramsey analogy. Now we had that snowball. So what we would do is the first half of the year, we would be like Dave Ramsey centric. All extra money would just crush debt as much as we could, because we also knew in order to qualify for a loan in second half of the year, banks were going to look at our debt to income ratio. So we had to lower our debt as much as we could before, like the second half of the year. And then we would go into like acquisition mode. We would usually take like a little weekend trip to be like, hey, look how much debt we paid off. All right, now let's get back to it.
And then we'd save a lot of money so we could afford the down payment and closing costs on another rental.
And then we would scramble the second half of the year. I was laying the foundation the first half of the year, networking, analyzing deals, listening to podcasts, doing everything that I could. And then I don't want to say inevitably, but inevitably we would find, actually I would find dozens and dozens of deals. And sometimes
I said no to most of them.
Sometimes they'd be like, Allie, look at the Excel sheet. This is a great one. And she's like, there's prayer vigils right across the street.
Someone was just murdered. Let's be real right now.
The cash flow,
Yeah.
And so eventually we would find one, and and then we learned creative finance. And at the end of the day, our goal was just to find ways to solve problems for buyers and sellers.
Okay. I love that. So you talked about acquisition. I want to touch on this. So Before we hit record, you told me you're getting all your deals off market, which is like opposite of most of our landlords that are listening. A lot of people just go to the MLS, which is fine. But off market is daunting. So were you going off market like while you guys were working full time?
But I will say, just for some backstory, we didn't even know what off market was when we first started. And we were looking on the MLS like every other person. And we spent hours on Redfin and Zillow. And we thought we were being productive, but we were just kind of staying busy. You know what I mean? And we probably put offers on 6+ properties. And every single time, us with our measly 5% down payment conventional loan and all full seller concessions, we couldn't stay competitive with the cash buyer who's going 50 to 100K over asking. Like, why would you want to sell to us? So we realized our superpower and our strength is not our money, because we have negative money. So the only thing we can do is network and dedicate our time to getting a deal. In real estate, we always say like it's either your money or your time, or it's both. So we didn't have the money, we had the time. So that first deal happened off market. We had a realtor, and like he had a deal before it went to market. So we got really lucky with that one. And it was just finding a realtor who had the deal, and he got us an off market one. But that opened our eyes to, oh, our competitive edge is getting a property before it's listed, because otherwise we can't afford to outbid the highest bidder.
I'll tell you, like sometimes your story can be your edge too, right? So the couple that we bought that first house hack, that was a house hack for them, and they had their first child, and now they were expecting their second child. So they were getting ready to, they'd outgrown the space, and they resonated with our story, and they're like, you know what, we could probably get a little bit more if we went to the open market and some like regular investor came in, but like we really like their story. So what I think people fail to recognize is like you can use social media in a productive way to kind of be like your digital resume, right? Before we ever bought our first property, like you can go back almost a decade, and on our Facebook, it was like, look what Ali and I are doing. It's like, we're going to the events, we're doing all the things. We were publicly sharing, and sure, people are like, oh, that's so weird, you're not even a real estate investor. It's like, okay, but like there's the power of positive thinking. We were putting out into the world, here's our goals, here's our aspirations. Even though we're flat broke and the odds are against us, we're telling the world, here's our goals, aspirations. We've never stopped doing that, and incredible things have come as a result.
And to give some like practical, tactical guidance to people listening, in order to find the future off-market deals that we didn't use like really sexy or advanced strategies. Like we didn't do mailers, we didn't hire cold callers. Remember, we were broke, we had no money. So really what we did was very simple. We have a few strategies that I can share. So it's all in-person networking or virtual networking. So we're going to real estate meetups. We're going on Facebook Marketplace and looking at apartments for rent and calling the landlord and telling them we love their apartment. And we're not looking to rent, but have you ever thought of selling? And we put in the reps and we put in the hours. Anytime we walked our neighborhood, we'd meet neighbors. We have our elevator pitch. Hey, we're Ali and Josh. We're newlyweds and we live in the area. We're looking to find our next rental property. If you or anyone you know is interested in selling, we're interested in 2 to 4 unit small multifamily properties, and we can close quickly. So we had that pitch quickly, and every single person in our life knew what our goal was, knew we wanted to buy a rental property. And it was shocking like how many people came to us from different directions with like, oh, my cousin, oh, this. And we got a lot of opportunities.
Even like, I think sometimes people miss out on opportunities with contractors.
Yes.
We have a shout out to Brad. Brad was our lawn guy for like 4.5 years. Every single time I saw Brad, I mean every time, probably I was really annoying. Hey, Brad, just so you know, I'd have my elevator pitch ready.
We were definitely annoying.
And every time he was just like, yeah. Well, guess where we found an off-market triplex for $190,000, but it was worth $240,000. Brad's brother-in-law's friend was a tired landlord and was like, I'm sick of this landlord stuff, I'm looking to sell. And he just so happened to tell Brad, who was like, who's that guy that's always oh, that's right, and we were at the doorstep of that property like 2 weeks later.
And the final thing I'll say, like making a good connection once can open limitless opportunities for the future. And I think that, you know, we started this in our late 20s. So who are we initially networking with? We're talking to other 20 somethings that are all trying to figure it out, and we're all kind of figuring out what to do. And then we started networking with the 50 and 60 and 70-year-old somethings that they did the thing. They have paid off portfolios. They are ready to unload. They might have some tired properties. And that was where the magic happened, because we were able to mutually support each other. They were getting ready to unload their properties and wanted to do it strategically. We are broke and can work on whatever timeline you want, because we really want to acquire these rental properties. So we were fortunate enough through networking to find an incredible couple who not only we purchased multiple properties from them, they help fund deals for us. So that one positive connection, we're helping them, they're helping us. It translated to multiple deals.
So how do you ask for seller financing? Is that just because it's like you knew that they could do it? Like, how do you find a seller finance deal?
So how to find seller financing, you don't go in asking for seller financing, right? So you want to understand, what are the couple's goals? Because I can tell you, like, I've pitched seller financing 100 times, and we've only done seller financing 4 or 5 times, right? So if people are just looking for, you know, all money right now, they're not really worried too much about tax implications. They're not really looking for cash flow. They just want a lump sum because of life events. We're probably not going to be your buyer, right? But a lot of times I ask them, you know, have you done the math as far as tax implications? Because long-term capital gains, especially if you own it for a while, depreciation recapture, that can take huge sums of money. Many of them haven't done the math on that. 2, I say, fantastic. If I gave you $500,000 right now, it's going to feel really good. Where are you going to put that $500,000 to get cash flow? Because a lot of people, especially that season of life, they want predictable income, right?
But they don't want the 9 p.m. maintenance calls.
And they are real estate people. They don't really know, where am I? What would I do with this money? Where now it's a $500,000 problem or more, right? And then, you know, and then the last thing too, right, is understanding, you know, ways by which we can provide that monthly income to them. How does that sound? And how would they like to get maybe more for their property than the retail buyer is going to pay? And so those are all the types of things that we have a conversation with them. If they want to learn more, fantastic. Every deal that we've done on seller financing, it's not transactional, it's relational, right? Because typically when you're buying a property with someone on seller financing, you might be making payments to them for, in our case, 5 to 7 years. You're staying in touch, you're staying in contact. So you really have to look big picture versus just doing a deal.
I have an idea. Let me know if you're game for it. Would you be down for like a quick like seller finance role play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the tired landlord in this case. You got my contact info from a friend of mine, and you just called me.
Hi, is this Brady?
Yes. Who's this?
Hi, Brady. Sorry for not introducing myself. This is Ali. I'm actually on the phone with my husband, Josh, and our friend John connected us to you because he said that you're a local property owner. Just a little bit about us. Josh and I live locally, and we own a few multifamilies, and we love connecting with other investors. Do you have a couple minutes to chat?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do have a couple investment properties. Got a couple duplexes.
Perfect. Yeah. So as Ali mentioned, so we're local. We own 14 rentals in the area. We self-manage. We're not looking to build some massive portfolio. You know, we only buy maybe 1 to 2 properties per year. I wanted to check in today. So I believe you've owned several of your properties for some time. Are there any right now you're thinking of maybe one day eventually parting ways with?
Yeah, I'd like to hold on to one of them, but the other one I'd like to offload. I'm kind of getting tired of managing. I'm at a spot in my life where like I don't want to spend the time on it anymore, but it's hard to kind of let go of that cash flow. Also, one of them, the one I'm thinking about letting go, needs a new roof, and so there's that.
Gotcha.
And that's a huge expense. We actually just did a new roof last year, and it was $15,000. So that definitely is tough. And I can appreciate the desire for cash flow for sure.
So the property
Yeah.
that needs the new roof is kind of pain in the butt right now. Is it a single family property? Is it a multi-family property?
It's a duplex. Yeah.
Perfect. And is it rented or is it vacant?
It's got tenants in it right now. They've been there a couple of years.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, what's stopping you then? I know obviously it needs a new roof, but what's stopping you from, getting a real estate agent and just listing the property for sale?
I mean, honestly, I just haven't been that motivated to explore it. I just
Mhm.
haven't made the time to do it. Not sure what my options are.
I think most people don't. And then next thing you know, you wake up and it's 5 years, right? Or 10 years, and you're still holding on to this property that's frustrating you and causing stress. And now all of a sudden it's not just a new roof, it's new HVAC. So we've actually partnered with a number of property owners in the community over the last few years, and we've bought their properties from them. We pay at or above the number they're looking for, and it's worked out incredibly well. Have you ever heard of seller financing?
No, but my ears kind of perked up when you said at or above, because I was a kind of expecting a low ball offer.
Yeah, no, and that's more
Not
often
to
than not.
offend you, that's what I get. You said you're, investors. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so that's the thing, and that's why I think people continue to work with us year after year, Brady, is because often, right? So, do you happen to know what the property might be worth today?
Probably worth about 450 right now.
So, the average cash buyer or traditional investor is going to come in on 450,000, and it's going to need a new roof. Which, if it's like our roof, it's probably going to be about at least $15,000 to $20,000. My guess is they're probably going to come in maybe at 300 or less, right? They're going to ask or offer you all cash. And it's going to be very transactional in nature. Does that sound kind of familiar?
Yep.
Yeah. And so for us, we see it all the time. And so our goal is to, again, how do we counteract that and kind of create that win-win? So the way seller financing works, Brady, is on something like a $450,000 property, assuming that's what it was worth, we could probably offer you about $45,000 down so that you have some money to kind of walk away with in your pocket. Now, the reason I say we can often pay more is because not only can I offer you the $450,000 you're asking, but there's a really good chance that I can probably give you another $100,000 of interest payments over the next 5 to 7 years, right? So for instance, we have a retired couple. They just sent us the interest payments that we made to them over the last 2 years, and over the last year, and it was over $40,000. So we gave them exactly what they were looking for, plus they made $40,000 of interest. Does that make sense so far?
Interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm tracking.
And so what's nice about that is, one, you no longer have to worry about managing the property and the headache that comes with it. That's us and our team.
Or fixing the roof or dealing with maintenance requests, anything. We manage the whole thing, right?
We'll take care of the roof. Plus, you get $45,000 in your pocket to do whatever you want to do with $45,000.
But now, every single month, instead of us paying a bank for a regular mortgage, you become the bank. So when I have to make that monthly payment, I'm paying you. So you're maintaining a nice steady flow of cash flow for an agreed upon term. Like, we can be super flexible. The last deal that we did, it was like a 5-year balloon with the option to renew. You're getting that steady cash flow payment without the stress of managing or dealing with maintenance.
Yep. And what's really nice too, so as you mentioned, if you sell that property today, I'm not sure exactly what you paid for it, but you're probably going to get hit with a pretty hefty capital gains tax. And most people right now, especially if they're looking to, offload a property, they're also not looking to get hit with a big tax bill. So we can actually spread out that tax obligation over 5, 7 years, however much. And then the remaining balance of what we owed you, we would write you a check for at the term of that. And then you'd be free to do whatever you want with several $100,000.
And if any of that sounds good, I mean, I know we've thrown a lot of information at you today, but if any of that sounds good, I'm happy to send you like examples of prior deals that we've done or any references with people that we've worked with. And then if we seriously do want to consider it, we could connect in person and have a sit down conversation of what your goals are and our goals and see if that aligns and if it could make sense to continue to explore this.
Yeah. I'm curious. The first place my brain goes is what's the catch? But I'd love to sit down and grab coffee with you guys and talk through it. Let's do it.
So I'm sold and I don't even have a property to sell. And that's why I didn't want to do it, because I was too busy trying to soak it in so that I can do it. That is everything.
It's a beautiful way
Yeah.
to
It
acquire
makes it a
property.
no-brainer.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
We work with new
Yeah.
investors all the time, and when we talk about our seller finance deal, I know it sounds like a late night infomercial or like smoke and mirrors, and it's like they're like, why would anyone want to seller finance? And it's like, the reason why you're asking me that question is because you're not educated on the benefits to the seller, because the seller gets a lot of benefits, right? So it's really, when you go into that conversation, you have to be so certain on all the ways that that seller, I'm actually helping you. That's what I'm teaching you right now, right?
Yeah.
As a seller, I am doing you a favor. You don't have to go through showings. You don't need some anonymous transaction where someone's going to nickel and dime you and freak out over a roof and all your deferred maintenance, because I'm sure it's a tired property, right? I'm here to make your life easier. I want to solve your problems and work as a team together. So it's very, very, like the way we do real estate, again, we had no money. We had to be personable and collaborative every step of the way.
That's why I talk a lot about educate, equip, and empower, right?
Yeah.
First, if I can educate you on the problems that you don't even know about yet, right? That sometimes that's half the battle. Two, if I can equip you with resources and options, now you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had these problems. Oh, but there's all these proven solutions. Fantastic. Then if I can empower you, my biggest empowerment isn't to work with us necessarily, it's to take action. Because when I tell you, I speak with people every single week who have been in analysis paralysis for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. 10 years. Think about how long ago was 2020? It feels like 20 minutes ago. It was almost 7 or 6 years ago. So I want to
Yeah.
empower people to take action. And that if it just so happens that they're empowered to take action with us, well, even better.
So tell me, break down the numbers, because it sounds good for the seller, but how is it good to you? Like, are you paying like a whole lot of money monthly? And then like break it down.
Yeah, so I'll give you a real deal example. So 2023, we found an off-market 4-unit deal. It's actually 2 duplexes that are side by side. Elder couple who, again, they didn't want to continue to have to manage rentals, but they wanted monthly income. So we negotiated a deal with them. Again, the properties are paid off too, right? So no debt against them. But there was some deferred maintenance and there was 2 tough tenants and problems they didn't want to have to navigate. So we offered them 10% down, so $32,000. And we offer them 5 years seller financing. So what that means is in 2023, we purchased the property, and in 2028, we have the option to extend 2 years, but it's probably going to be 2028. We would be refinancing them out and paying them off completely.
Just to get super technical, I believe we do have the option to get out of it earlier if we wanted, but we have to stagger it like one property at a time.
So we did 10% down. And then what's cool with seller financing too, right? So typically you go to a bank and a bank says, you have to put 20% down. Here's all of our regulations and standards. And oh, by the way, here's the interest rate, take it or leave it, right? Seller financing is all about win-win negotiations. So we offered them 10% down, which they were happy with. They got, again, $30,000 in their pocket. And at the time, so this was 2023, interest rates, I believe
7, close to 8.
close to 8%. And I was like, sorry, 8% doesn't really work for my Excel sheet. How about I offer you guys 6% interest? And at the time, I think high yield savings accounts were maybe offering 4% or so. So I was like, I'm going to give you more than what a bank would give you. But in exchange, I want less than what a bank is going to charge me. And so we landed right in the middle, and that made sense to them. It was win-win. And so that's exactly what we did. And so in actually it was 4 months before our daughter was born. So we bought that 4-plex off market.
I remember I was super pregnant. We
Yeah.
were turning over an apartment and
Yeah.
screening tenants for one of the vacant units.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it just was such, it was such a win-win for both the seller and for us. Like, we got a deal on the interest rate. If we went conventional, like through a bank, we wouldn't have been able to put the 10% on that property. We weren't moving into it, and it just it really worked out.
And this is a retired couple who had been delaying so many like trips and travel plans that they've been wanting to take. They've been delaying and delaying. Everything happened in 2020, so they couldn't travel for 2.5 years, and then they finally retired. But now all these properties and tenants, and we're like, okay, great, let us solve a problem, and we did, and then they started traveling.
I know we're running a little long here, but I'm having a hard time cutting you guys short because this is so valuable, and we're getting into the weeds, which is great. I want to touch on two things before we wrap it up. One, I want to hear about your systems, how you're managing, and then we'll do a quick fire round and wrap it up. But real quick, I know we're later in the episode, but a quick housekeeping just for our landlords. Just a reminder, if you're getting value from these podcasts, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them on YouTube or your podcast app. And if you have a second, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. And then real quick, a practical thing before we jump back in. I know a lot of you landlords are asking how you can stay organized as you're growing your portfolio. We just shipped something really cool at RentRedi. We just released, now RentRedi connects directly to your bank account. So we have your bank account transactions automatically flow into the app, automatically. So you can snap pictures of receipts, have your bank connect to the app, and everything shows up in one place, which is super helpful for taxes. So an accounting suite now within RentRedi, if you didn't already know. So if you want to check it out, head to rentredi.com. But anyways, Josh and Ali, you guys have been with RentRedi since the beginning. What are the most important systems for you guys as landlords?
We have a few, and a common phrase that we say with real estate and life, I guess, is like, you don't know what you don't know. So we did not become real estate investors and have this beautiful binder of systems and know exactly how to do it. All of our systems are built on learning opportunities and mistakes and challenges. So we're constantly crafting and refining, and we're still figuring it out. I would say, like, we self-manage everything. So if you rent from us, you're dealing with Josh and Ali directly. We don't have a property manager right now. So the biggest thing, number one, tenant screening, right? Yep. Listing your apartment, doing so properly, screening and vetting tenants, make sure we have a very, very thorough tenant screening process, because that's number one, getting a person in there that's going to treat your space with respect, all of those good things, right? So that's a huge system that we are very, very strict with. From there, we use RentRedi. We have all of our property management software. If people have an issue, they file maintenance requests, and having a really good ironclad lease. Like, I want to say our lease is like 18 pages. So that includes a lot of things like different policies for snow removal, and if there's an emergency, how to reach us, and all of this stuff, because we want people that are moving into our units to feel very informed and like they know the proper channels for communication.
After that, so we've spent the last almost a decade now building out a team of network of contractors, right? So what I really like about RentRedi, though, is that like our tenants can share photos and videos and message us through that platform, and then very quickly I can just get that information over to our contractors, so I have eyes on it a little bit. And we used to be able to be more hands-on, and then our daughter was born, and so that actually forced us to step back. And full disclosure, we're in the state of New York where it's very cold. We are actually not cold weather people. So we wanted to build something that we could, one, operate remotely, and then two, also in alignment with spending time with our daughter. So now we have contractors who go in, they do most of the actual hands-on maintenance work. We see before and afters, and they help us tremendously with that. And then we, with the help of a CPA, do manage the bookkeeping. So we like doing the front end work of leasing and marketing, the back end work in terms of like bookkeeping and accounting stuff, but the actual hands-on work, we built out a team to help us with that.
And then obviously rent collection. When we first started, it was paper checks and Venmo and Zelle, and it was a disaster. And now everyone's just streamlined through RentRedi. So yeah, sometimes we have a tenant that misses a payment and it's a conversation, but it's quote unquote passive, where I just see the money coming in and I don't have to physically collect a check. So as you scale your portfolio, it's just impossible to do that. You need to do electronic payments. So I would say, yeah, those are the main things of how we stay organized.
I could talk with you guys all day. I'm like, man, we should have done a two-part. I know we need to wrap it up for time's sake. Let's do a really quick fire round before we close this up. What are the top tools you guys rely on for investing, for being a landlord?
Top tools. So I would say, yeah, property management software and honestly, social media, specifically Facebook. I could find 3 off-market deals every single week on Facebook and it's free. So I would say like Facebook social media is a great way to connect with people. And then property management software, I wouldn't go cheap on it. It's definitely worth its weight in gold.
I just want to add on.
Oh, and a good CPA.
Yeah, not just Facebook for finding deals, but finding contractors too. Like, we're a part of a local real estate Facebook group, and if I have an emergency or I need someone for something, we do have a team now, but sometimes my person's busy or I don't have someone in that particular area, and I post it on, immediately get responses from other investors that I know and trust, and then I can vet the person myself. So yeah, networking is huge on social media for real estate.
Second question. What's a book that changed your life, and tell me the problem it solved? And it can't be Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, I would say Set for Life by a mile, right? I would say it's 2 parts. So one, it's Set for Life by Scott Trench. The problem that it solved was there was this binary, you mentioned like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I would put like Grant Cardone in there. There was this binary thinking. You either have to like own huge apartment buildings and go big or go home, or it's like rice and beans. You don't go inside a restaurant like that was like, I feel like those were the polar opposites, and like neither one of those really jived with us. And so we kind of went with like the Goldilocks approach of like, what's the happy medium? And so that's what provided for us. And then Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. It's not a real estate book, but it's a great like mindset about wealth long term. And then the last one is actually The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Kind of like we were saying, like people in real estate, they want to get so in the weeds on the analytics, but 80% of real estate isn't the real estate. It's the people behind the real estate and the problem you can help them solve. The psychology of money debunks so much of money that it's not actually like money, it's psychology, but people don't always make that connection.
I'd also like to answer, but if there's not time, you don't have to include it. I would also say, like, I wasn't a big book reader. Like, that was definitely Josh. But for people listening, like, we often talk to like couples, and couples are not always like aligned. Like, there's usually one person who's really into it and one person who's maybe not as into it, or they're like kicking and screaming. At least that was our dynamic. So what I found really, really crucial to the beginning of our journey was listening to podcasts. Specifically, like, we listened to a lot of like Bigger Pockets Real Estate, Bigger Pockets Money, Rookie. But he would curate, like my little DJ, like podcasts of couples where they were working together on building a portfolio. And it was very helpful for me to hear other voices and other situations that had similarities to our own. And it made me feel like less alone, and it made real estate feel more accessible to me and like a thing that we could do. Like, it's not just for like the rich people on the internet that are making millions of dollars. So I feel like hearing real life stories, it's not a book, but podcasts, I feel like it was really, really helpful for us to like get on the same page and make a plan.
Quick little note on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
We talk a lot.
Do you guys know the story of the 4-minute mile?
Roger Banner, is that what?
Yeah, Roger Bannister, right?
Yeah.
Everyone in the world thought it was impossible, humanly impossible, to run a mile in under 4 minutes, until Roger Bannister said, "I think I can." He trained all these different creative ways, and long story short, back in the 50s, he became the first person to ever run the mile in under 4 minutes. And I want to say it was within a year, Brady, like 50 other people had run a mile in under 4 minutes. And until then, it was perceived to be impossible. So whether it's in real life, like in person or online, like seeing is believing. And so for us, even now we still do this, but seeing other people, hearing other stories, it helped reinforce that it is possible for people like us in our situation. Here's real life examples. And our mission now is to kind of like pay it forward. If we can put that same message out and someone can hear this and say like, it can be possible because they did it and they did it and they did it, etc. Like that's what it's all about.
I love that. I love it. And I think it's so true. If you don't see someone else doing it, it's hard to imagine that ourselves. We like to think we can imagine and be super creative, but sometimes we just need to see the proof of concept.
Y'all are a testament to everybody who says, I want to get in real estate, but I don't have money. I don't have money. I don't have money. Because at that point, that's like a stop. I'm done. Because I don't have the money. And seeing y'all do it is like the 4-minute mile. If they can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the cool thing is too is like if you have goals first and foremost, and you have a willingness to solve problems for others, I think you can do incredibly well in real estate long term. But if people don't think of like how can I solve problems, is they just think of what they don't have, and so sometimes that's a big limiting
And I
belief.
think it's tough. Like, you have to get uncomfortable and out of your
Sure.
comfort zone. Like, we really got very uncomfy.
Yeah.
We had uncomfy conversations. We had a lot of self-doubt and challenges. Like, you see us now and we're all smiles and it's so great. But like, this was a grind. But we had a bigger vision and a bigger picture for our life. And I was coming home with stress migraines every day from my job, and my mental health was crumbling. And I was like, I can't do this. And we figured out an escape route, and we didn't know when that would be, but we wanted that breathing room and that optionality, and real estate helped get us there. And then with the birth of our daughter, super colic, it was so hard. Parenthood kicked our butts. And I was like, oh, I don't have to go back to my part-time job, because we've built so many different safety nets in the past 7 years, and now I'm home with her full time. And I think that it speaks a lot to that. So it can feel discouraging and overwhelming. We've been there, we're still there. It's still hard. It's not easy now, but just one step at a time, you know.
Hard looks different though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I appreciate you guys sharing your story. I think it's super inspiring for everyone listening who wants to be where you are. I think it's I think it's just awesome. So thank you guys for being honest, for getting into the weeds with us and sharing your story. This has been great, guys.
Yeah. Also, if it's okay, so we actually one of the big things that people always like to ask us about is off-market deals. So we actually created an entire free guide all about how to find off-market deals. I'd be happy to share that with all of your listeners so they can get started finding off-market deals today.
For sure. I will put a link to that in the description. Anybody who wants that? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I want it, because I always think to myself, everybody says, oh, I'm going off market. I bought my property off realtor.com.
Sure.
And I don't even understand what off market deals are. Like, they say it, but you don't understand it. It's like the thing that goes over people's heads.
What I would say, Ebony, is like, so like off market, like, so next time, like you're driving around or whatever, if you see a house and it doesn't have a for sale sign on it and it's not listed, that's an off market property.
Yeah, off market is just before someone puts it on the internet, before they get a realtor involved. So when we get off market deals, we're working directly with the seller. There's no realtors. Our attorney handles all the paperwork. So it's just person to person talking and figuring it out. And then there's strategies for how to connect with sellers. But all off market means is you don't have a real estate agent. It's not listed online. So there's 1,000 eyeballs that know about this deal. Ideally, it's just you that knows about this deal. So it cuts out your competition.
So sometimes people they'll look in like a zip code and they'll be like, oh man, there's only 5 houses for sale. It's like, well, no, there's only 5 houses publicly for sale, but there might be 500 sellers who are considering maybe selling, but they got that broken roof.
And it's like, how do you connect with those sellers? Yeah.
That's what we do.
Okay, so come on, viewers, ask for part 2. We gotta do a part 2.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, everybody leave a comment on YouTube, shoot me an email. We'll show you guys. Thanks again for hopping on. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, we have a few ways. We're pretty much at the FI couple on every platform. Instagram's our biggest, followed by Twitter. We have a little Facebook page. We're on TikTok, but we're not really involved. And then we have a website, www.theficouple.com.
Awesome. I love that. Well, everybody listening, watching, give them a follow. Go check them out. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.